Alright, so this is the page that we will actually create. As you can see, we have very simple navigation bar up here. It's actually downloaded straight away from the Bootstrap documentation. Then we have some sort of hero section, very small hero section, just somehow describing some sort of punchline about the website. Then we have some sort of main content. It's just made up of articles. Probably you want to put more than just 6 articles in here, but yeah, that's up to you. Then we have a load more button, so this is just a button that will load more articles, probably using some sort of Ajax or something like that. And lastly, we have some sort of tags about the website, and then we have the footer with some sort of basic info about us and some navigation links, right? So yeah, but that's pretty much the whole index page. So let me show you how it looks on a mobile phone. You can notice that we have like fully responsive menu with the, though we don't have a icon, I was too lazy to import Font Awesome or any sort of library for that. Obviously you can do that on your own. Then we have the hero section, and then we have all of these articles and tags and footer. A very simple page, but it's fully responsive, and we didn't have to write any line of CSS in order to make it responsive. Bootstrap took care of everything. Then we've also created a sort of detail page, right? Usually when you click on some article like this one, it should take you to a detail page, like maybe something like this. And in here we have just the title. Underneath we have the image, some text, and then some subheading, text, just a unordered list, some buttons in here, and lastly we have the info about the author, that with the background color being actually the primary color, so that looks, in my opinion, very interesting. But yeah, then we have like some sort of text and footer, and in here we have just some recommended articles. Yeah, that's up to you. What you want to put in there. If I make it responsive, or if I make it display like on mobile phone, you can see that everything still works properly, and that everything still works, though we might want to just remove this margin in here. That might be a problem on a mobile phone, but yeah, anyway. Otherwise, I think that this looks pretty cool. I think that this is actually pretty alrighty. And let's just move on to the About Us page. So as I often say, the About Us page is more about the content rather than the styling, I think. So we've just put a simple text and a simple image in here. It's aligned in center. So on the y-axis it's centered. So that if you put larger text here, nothing happens. You could put like multiple of these, simply copy pasting. But I decided not to do that because that would be just redundant, right? So if I make it responsive, you can see that it looks still pretty cool. And let's also take a look at the Contact Us page. So once again, the Contact Us is pretty straightforward. We have just a form in here with just some sort of basic information. We have like maybe some sort of maybe describe why you're writing us or something like that. Feel free to just edit these things out, right? You can just remove them. But yeah, it's like very simple form. We can just, if we make it display like on iPhone, I think that this looks actually pretty cool. And it's like fully responsive. I think that this is just very simple, but it's like clean and it looks good in my opinion. So yeah, that's what we will create in the next hour or so. Another thing that I just want to mention, if you at any point feel the need to hit the like button, feel free to do so. It's free, don't worry, but it's only a limited time offer until the end of this video. So yeah, do it now. Yeah, but without any further ado, let's just get into it. So first thing that we are actually going to do is we will customate our Bootstrap. So basically we will do Bootstrap theming. If you don't know what that means, in Bootstrap there are predefined sort of colors. For example, things like primary color, right? For example, if you type button primary, it will use this sort of color. And you can change these settings, these default settings sort of, by customizing the Bootstrap theme. For example, you can change the font family and stuff like that, and spacing, right? If you use those classes like padding 3, padding 2, and stuff like that, they all use this spacer value as a default, right? That's what we actually did, right? We've customized the Bootstrap library and we've got it as a mybootstrap.css. When I compiled it, I got mybootstrap.css. Now, if you don't know how to customize your Bootstrap theme, I highly recommend. I have a video on that particular topic. I make sure it's down there in the description, or you can just go there somehow. But yeah, I will explain in there basically how you can do this sort of customization, okay? So without any further ado, let's just get into it. Alright, so currently what I did is I opened up the new folder. This is just your theme folder. I've basically put the mybootstrap.css file that I already generated in here. You can see that, for example, the primary color is set to the color that I've defined in the customization process, and or that there is the font actually imported, right? But yeah, so this is the CSS that we will actually use. And yeah, and inside here we have just the HTML, and hopefully we will just make it through with these files. So what I will do is I will create a new document inside here. I will just link to the CSS, so link with the relation being style sheet, like this, and the href is actually a mybootstrap.css, like this. We don't have any folder or anything like that. And let me just go to the Bootstrap documentation and let me also add a couple of images. Alright, so I've got here a new folder with a couple of images that I've just imported. I've downloaded from unsplash.com, so feel free to go to unsplash.com, and there is plenty of high quality images that you can use on your website. Then I have also went to the getbootstrap.com and into the documentation, because there is a lot of things that we will actually use. So I will just type in here navbar, and I will just import a navbar that somebody else just created for me. So what I will do is I will just take this whole thing, copy, paste it into our project, so right here. And let's hit save, and let's see if I reload the page, there should be something. Yeah, there it is. So we have a function in navbar. You can notice that the color of this button is actually green, but with the default setting, I think it should be, yeah, it is green. Let's see. Okay, that's because it is success, but let's see if I make it primary, because that's what our color is, right? That's what we define. Yeah, there it is. That's our green that we've defined in our CSS customizer. So let me just close this thing and let's see what we can change. So I will probably want the background to be dark. Let's see. There it is. And let's also say that the color will be light, something like that. Let's see whether that works. There it is. Wow. So color light, actually make it green. We probably don't want to go with dark in here. Let's just go with the light color in here, so that we have actually white in the background. Yeah, I think that this looks actually nice. And in here, if you just go into colors, you can notice that there is a lot of colors that you can use for the text. Let's see, let's just use text dark probably. So inside here I will just go and use the text dark like this, and let's see if I save it and go back to our page. There should be a dark text, even though I'm having problems seeing it. That's probably because there are a lot of links and they don't have the class of dark text. So I will just put it in here, and let's see whether that actually works. So the home should be dark. Yeah, there it is. Home is dark. Alright, so let's just copy paste that class to pretty much every link in the navigation. Let me just get rid of this drop down. We don't need that. And also let's get rid of this disabled link. So let's just actually copy paste a couple of these. So this will be our navigation bar. There it is. They are all black. Nice. And let's also change here. Let's go here and let's also add the text dark class to this. So in here, the navbar brand will be also dark. There it is. And let's also change it to something like theme cell. Right. So our name of our theme. Alright, let's also just try to find a font sizes. So font weight and italic, no. So I've actually couldn't find any sort of classes in Bootstrap for the font sizes, so that if we want to set different font sizes, pretty much there is no way we can do it, sadly. So what I will do is I will add these classes to the mybootstrap.css. So I will simply add it somewhere. Let's just put it at the whole top of the file, so somewhere around here. And let's just add a class of font size, and let's just say 1. That will be the largest. So let's just say that this one will have font size of 3 rem. So this will be like really large. And then I will just simply copy paste it and change these values. So I will just say font size 2 will have 2 rems. Font size 3 will have 1.5 rem. Font size 4 will have 1 rem, like this, and font size 5 will have, let's just go with 0.7 rem, right? So we will just add these classes on our own, and then I can go back to our index.html and I can just say in here, I want this to have the font size of, let's just go with 3, something like that. Let's see how 3 would look like. It should get a little bit larger. Maybe we can go with 2. That should, okay, it doesn't work for some reason. Font size of 2, that's a class. I don't see why it doesn't work. So if I just press the F12, it should open up developer tools and we can check that out. So I will just get this sort of navigation, and inside we can check. So let's just see, what do we have? Of course, font size. So there is a predefined navbar brand font size. That's why it overrides our, it's underneath actually our font size classes. So that's why it is overwritten. So we can actually fix that by making it important. So I will just put important in here, and I will just copy paste it throughout the whole project. So like this, like this, like this, like this, and save it. So there we have it. Okay, cool. So what I will do is just change this to font size of 3. Yeah, I think that this looks actually pretty good. We can actually keep it this way. I think that this looks kind of alright. We can just also change the font weight. Let's see whether Bootstrap have a class for font weight. So font weights and italics. So probably yeah. Okay, so we can make it bold, bolder, normal, and light. So let's just make these things bold and see how it looks like. So font weight bold. I will just put it in here just to see how things look out. Yeah, there it is. There's it. So it's bold. I think that this looks actually pretty cool. So let me just add it to the whole navigation just to see how it would look like if I make this whole thing bold. Yeah, I think that this looks actually better. So let's just go with that. Maybe we can just put a font size of 4 class. I'm not sure what font sizes those links have. I will just add it to the home. Yeah, they have a font size of 1 rem by default. I mean, it's up to you. I will probably just try to change it to something like 1.1. Let's see how that would look like. If I make it 1.1 or something like 1.2 even, might look alright. So if I save this whole thing, go here and reload it, it should all work. Okay, it's taking a very long time. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, I will just put this whole class to every single link, because in my opinion it looks just better when the navigation is a little bit larger. So like this, font size of 4. Let's see. Yeah, there we have it. Nice. And let me actually remove the margin from this input. So we have the input and then we have the search button, and I want these two to be like tied together, so really close up. So I think that this looks actually pretty cool. And let me also add this whole thing into a div with the class of container, so that we have the whole navigation inside of a container. So yeah, actually we just want this content, right? Because we have set a background to this whole thing. So div with the class of, div with the class of container, and I will put just the whole thing inside of this. So Control X, this whole thing, and I'll put it inside of this div. So like this, and let's see how it looks like now. Yeah, there we have it. I think that this looks actually pretty cool. You can change this and make the navigation look a little bit more normal without the bold sort of styling. So let's see how that would look like. I think that this also looks kind of good, and I think that this looks actually a little bit better because the logo is sort of currently the most important thing on the website. So let's just go with that. Alright, so let me actually start out by creating a new section with the class of hero. So we'll create the hero section. Inside here we will have just another div with the class of container. And inside here we will have just a h1 heading saying basically theme cell, I don't know, the best themes, right, or whatever. And inside here you probably just want to add some sort of class as a font weight bold, something like that. Okay, font weight bold. That should make it bolder. Yeah, there it is. And you can also use the font size of 1 that we've already defined. Let's see, it will make it a little bit larger, but that's all right. What we want to do now is actually style this hero section. So I will go just to our main my bootstrap.css, and I will just target the hero section in here. And what I will say is just that there will be a height of, let's just say, with 20 rems. And also I will say that the background will be somehow gradient. So let's just use background of gradient. So linear gradient, and we will just go to right, and we will use the primary color. So from this, where is it? Can't find the primary, secondary, primary, there it is. And so from the primary color we will just go to the, let's see, maybe to this warning color, or maybe the dark color, we will find out. So I will just try a couple of options and we will see how things look. So if I just make it this way, it looks like this, which is not bad, but could be better. Definitely could be better. Let's just see if I use the dark color, how things look like now. Okay, so that's also pretty, but let's see how it would look like if we've used a white color. So just a simple white color might look the best. If I reload this whole thing, let's see, yeah, there it is. Yeah, it is not the best. Let's see, we also have the danger color. That might be the best thing to look, no. And lastly we have the secondary color. So this is pretty much our last options in here. Otherwise I would probably go with the yellow color. Yeah, I think that this yellow looked better, so let's just copy paste it in here, and this is as good as it gets. I think that this looks actually kind of nice. Let me just put this text into center, and I will just do that by displaying it as a flex, so display flex. And I will also say justify content center and align items center, like this. So this will basically center everything that is inside. So this is just the heading. Let me just put it in there, not here, in here, like this, and let's see. Okay, it justified it, but there is no align. Yeah, of course, because it doesn't have the height. So let's just say that the height will be 100%. But it's still, yeah, we cannot put the height in here, but we had to put it in here. So that might help, that doesn't help. Alright, let's see what we can think of. Right, there is currently the problem that the text, the heading have actual some height, and then we have this sort of div, but this sort of div is not centered. Let me actually just try out and put this whole thing away, and let's move it into this hero class. Let's see, that might help. Okay, so it's currently centered. So inside here I will just put a yeah, we can actually just do it like this. So display flex and justify content center will be moved right here. Let's see whether that works. There it is, nice. So we have this whole thing moved to center. Let's see how a text of white would look like if we make it wide. I think that this looks actually pretty alright. Let's just go with that. So let's continue and actually create the section that will be our main section. Let me just use the main tag for this one. I think that it fits nicely the purpose of the main tag. This is just an HTML5 tag. You probably are aware of this. And let me just call this one main. So let's just call this one content. And let's just say that the background color will be light. So background light, like this. Let's see whether it changes something. Probably not, because we don't have any content in here. And let's also add the container. So like this. Nice. And let's see what we want to do. Well, inside here we just want to create a section that will have the class of row, and inside here we will just have a articles. So article with the class of call on middle devices. We'll have like about third of the screen, and inside here we will have just a div with the class of or no, we don't need actually div. We can just go with image and add the class of image fluid to this, and let's just say that the alt will be something. We'll leave that up to you, and the source will be just 2 images and the first one. So if I close this thing up, there should be a image loaded. There it is, nice. Also, let me just add some sort of padding on the section. So padding on the y-axis of 5. Let's see how that will look like. There it is, a nice little space. And what we can actually do is just, instead of this whole thing, we can just maybe put the padding on the y-axis of 5, and that might actually do the trick even better. So if I just do it like this, yeah, we need the hero class because that's we need the hero class, but inside here we just can unset the height. We can just make it auto, right? So like this. Let's see if I reload it. There it is, nice. Okay, I think that this looks actually cool, so let's just go with that. And yeah, let me also handle this whole thing. So actually I think that the padding on the y-axis could be smaller a little bit. Yeah, I think that this looks better. And let's just add a div with the class of how do I call this, article content. And let's just add a padding of 2 to this thing, and inside here we will just have a h2 heading, and let's just say my Bootstrap theme, and then we will have maybe some sort of div with the class of display flex and the class of justify content space between. I'm not sure actually how so let's just use the flex. So let's just see the documentation. I'm not sure what classes we want to use. So we want to use okay, column reverse, stuff like that. Yeah, there it is. So justify content. What do we want? We want between. Yeah, we want between for this thing. So we will use justify content between. That means it will put all the space available in between these lines, and inside here I will just have a paragraph saying 20th of March of 2020, some sort of date, and then I will have another paragraph with yeah, probably in here we can just put a class, or maybe no, let's just use a span for this. So we will have a span inside here with the class of badge, right? And if you go in here and actually search for badges, so search the documentation for badges, right, you can see that you can add a lot of styles to this. So let's just use this badge and then badge primary, I think. So this should be a green color, so primary, and inside here we will just put our category, so something like Bootstrap or whatever. And yeah, let's just close this thing and remove this one, save it, and let's reload the page, see how it looks like. Okay, so there we have it. There's our very simple heading. Then there is our some sort of I don't know, like date and some badge for this thing. The heading is actually very large, so let's just use heading of 3, or we can just use heading of 2 and add the class of font size of, let's just use 3, something like that. That might be too small. No, it's actually fairly alright. And let's also maybe make it bold. Let's see, so if I make it font weight bold, it will be bold currently. There it is. I think that this looks actually cool. Let's just go with that. And let me just check out the developer tools and see why there's such a big space around this. So we have a div that have the padding of 3. Okay, so we probably don't want that large padding around here. So what we want to do is just use the padding of 2 from the x-axis, so padding of on the x-axis of 2 and padding on the y-axis of 1, probably. Let's see. So that should, yeah, I think that this looks better. And inside here there was some margin added by default, so let's just say that we want margin to be 0. So that would move this whole thing quite close to this. So we can maybe just say that the margin at bottom will be also 1. Just a little bit of margin underneath. Yeah, I think that this looks actually pretty cool. Now what we can do is just change the font size of this thing. So we can just say that the font size of this will be, let's just use 3. That's probably too large. Okay, that's definitely too large. I'm not sure whether we've defined font size of 5. Yeah, I think that the font size of 5 is ideal for this whole thing. So let's see. Okay, that's too small. And so we want something in between the 4 and 5. So let me just change this whole thing to, let's just go with 0.9, something like that. So I will save it, and there we should have it. Yeah, it's font size of 5. I think that this looks actually pretty good. So let's just go with that. And also let me try to add a little bit of shadow to this whole thing, to this whole article post. There it is. I think that this looks actually pretty nice. And let me just also remove the padding on this whole thing. So padding will be 0, so that it's like the shadow is there on these. Yeah, I think that this looks actually pretty good. Let's just go with that. And yeah, let me just copy paste a couple of these. Alright, so after I've copy pasted a couple of these, you can notice that we sort of missed a margin. We definitely need to add some sort of margin to this whole thing. So let me just do that. Alright, so I'm here, back here, and I will just add a margin of 1. Let's see how margin of 1 would look like. So I will just copy paste a couple of these articles like this, and let's see. There should be a little bit of space. Okay, obviously we need to put the margin somewhat inside here. Okay, so that the content have the margin, because currently if we have a col middle of 4 but we add margin to it, that means that there would be only 2 articles that fits the whole row, so we don't want that. So I will just put a div with the class of margin 1 right in here, and I will put the whole content of this thing inside. Okay, and let's remove this margin up here. So I will just save this thing, and also we have to remove this shadow and put it in here like this. So that should change things up a little bit, and let me just take this whole thing and copy paste it inside here a couple of times just to see how things look like now. Yeah, I think that this looks actually pretty cool. So let's just go with that, and I will just copy a little bit more of these. So there will be like 6 articles in there. Nice. I think that this looks all right. Good. So what we want to do now is actually add some sort of load more button. So underneath this whole section, I will just add a div with the class of display flex, and let's just use justify content center, and then we will have just some sort of button or a link. No, this should be probably a button with the class of button and button main, or button primary, sorry. And in here we probably want to define some sort of on-click event that should load more, like using some Ajax. It should load more articles, but otherwise in here it should just say load more like this. And let's save this thing, see how it looks like. There should be a primary button, there it is, saying load more. And let's also use the class of button large so that it is actually larger. Okay, let's see. If I go to Bootstrap, I think that there should be a class of button large. Maybe I'm not writing the class correctly. So button primary, and then underneath, yeah, there it is, large button. So btn LG, sorry, so LG instead of large. So LG, and that should make, yeah, there it is, nice. And let's see what happens if we add the font size of something smaller. So let's just use font size of 3. Let's see how it would look like. Yeah, that's larger. So let's just use font size of 4. And let's see. Yeah, I think that this looks actually pretty cool. Let's just go with that. And let's add some sort of margin to top. So margin to, or actually on y-axis, we can use something like 3 or something like that. Yeah, I think that this looks actually pretty alright. Obviously, you want to define multiple of these, right? Put in here more posts. But for now, I think that this is just like okay. Good. So what you may want to do also is just change some sort of these badges. So it depends on category. So for example, in here, I can just put badge of warning, probably. And let's just put something HTML in here and see how it looks like. So there should be, yeah, there it is. It's actually yellow, but I mean, it looks all right. So you can just like somehow differentiate between your, so ampersand like this. What's happening? I think that this should work. Why is it writing? Okay, what's going on? I want the ampersand. Yeah, there it is. I'm not sure what was wrong. But anyway, you can differentiate between different categories on your block size, right? Or so that you have different styles of the badge. Cool. Then another thing that we will do is just create a new section underneath the main, and this will be just a section with the tags. So inside here we will have a class of let's just use the same thing as we did in here, so hero and padding of on y of 5. So this should be just this just using it because we want the gradient background in here. And let's also say that there will be some sort of div with the class of let's just use display flex, and inside here we will have our different badges. So I will just have a link with the class of badge, and let's make it large. And yeah, you probably want to define some sort of href to a search or whatever, and inside here you can just put Bootstrap. Let's see how that would look like. There should be some sort of, where is it? Can't find it. Okay, so there should be a link. Let me just see. So if I just use it, there it is. Display flex, and inside here we have just some sort of link that we cannot see because the color is obviously primary, right? So the batch large actually doesn't work. Let me see in the documentation. If I just go and type in here batch like this, and let's see what we can do. Yeah, of course, so it depends, it inherits the size from this. So what we want to do is just change it to batch, and let's just say that the font size will be, so font size will be 3, something like that. Let's see how it looks like now. Okay, we still cannot see anything. Yeah, of course we have to define the yeah, the batch class. So inside here we will just go ahead and type in here batch primary or something, or let me just use the secondary for this one. So this should be just a gray sort of, yeah, there it is. I think that this looks actually alright. And let me just put this whole thing into a container. So let's see if I add the class of container. I think that this should work. Yeah, there it is. And let's also use the justify content center. Probably. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. And if I just put a couple more of these in here. Right, so if I copy paste a lot of these, it just overflows the whole display. So inside here I will just use the flex wrap. So flex wrap, and it should wrap it around. So if I reload the page, there it is. It's currently wrapped, sort of. Yeah, so what we want to do is just probably just change the font size of these to something smaller because this is just too large. And we probably just want to, then make it larger, of course. So let's just use 4 for this one. There it is. I think that this looks good. And let's also add some sort of margin to this. So margin of 1. Probably margin of 1 I think will look all right. Yeah, there it is. So I will just copy paste this sort of style and I will just cut to it. After a few minutes of trying, I think that this is probably the sweet spot that we wanted to hit. So inside here we have a badges. I've added a little bit of margin to them. I've added a little bit of padding to them, and I've changed the class to badge of dark instead of badge of secondary. And I think that this looks pretty much pretty cool, I think. Yeah, so let me also just remove the padding because I think that this is very large padding and we don't need that large amount of padding. Yeah, I think that this looks actually pretty cool. And let's also maybe just change it to 4. I think 4 will look better. Yeah, there it is. Nice. And let me actually style out the footer. So let's just go down here, and underneath this section I will create a footer tag, and we will just style out our footer. So inside here we will have just a div with the class of container. And inside here the footer will have the class of background dark and the text white. And yeah, inside here in the container we will have some sort of h2 heading, basically saying the logo of our page. Okay, so theme cell for some reason. And then we will have a paragraph with a lorem of like 50. So inside here will be some dummy text. Just pretty much doesn't matter what you put in there. Yeah, there it is. Nice. We definitely want to add some sort of padding on the y-axis of around 4 to this whole thing. Yeah, and let's also add a text center. So text center like this, and this should make it centered. There it is. And I think that this looks actually pretty alright. What we can do is just change the class of this whole thing so that the font weight is bold like this, and let's see how that would look like. I think that this will, yeah, there it is. I think that this looks actually better. And underneath here, we definitely want to put something like a footer navbar or footer navigation where we have like privacy policy, stuff like that. So I will just do that, and I will just do it like this. So I will have a div with the class of display flex. And let's also say that it will be a flex wrap. Even though I hope we will not need this. And let's also put a justify content to center. So this should center things out, and we will have just a links with the class of badge and probably badge primary. I think will look okay, and we will have some sort of href in here, and then we will have just a privacy policy like this. And let's reload the page, and let's go down there just to see. There it is. Nice. So we definitely want to make it larger, so I will just use the font size of 3, and let's also use the padding of 1 and margin of 1. So pretty much the same thing that we did with these tags right here. Yeah, I think that this looks actually okay, even though we probably want to go with the font size of 4. There it is. Nice. So I will just copy paste a couple of these in here. Alright, so I've copy pasted everything, and I think that this is pretty much done. I think that we are actually done, and I can just check out how things look on a mobile phone. So if I just open up the F12 and press this sort of mobile phone, you can notice that we have a problem with the navigation. But otherwise, I think that things looks actually alright. Yeah, there it is. I think that this looks actually pretty cool. So that's good. All of that is good, only the navigation, right? We have a problem with that. So in order to fix that, I will just go to the Bootstrap, and then we need to actually go to this get started, and then in here we need to import this JavaScript, and let's just put it right here. So I will just copy paste it in there, save it, reload the page, and then I can click on this whole thing, and there is the menu, right? So currently it's working, but we are having a little bit of problem with the icon in there. So if I just go right up there, there's probably a sort of problem with the icon. So inside here we have just the button, and yes, so ideally you want to put an icon in here, some sort of icon that you may want to use something like Font Awesome for the importing of the icon. But what I will do is just type in here menu. That should do the trick. Okay, so we have some sort of menu button. I know it doesn't look like great, but yeah, I don't want to import Font Awesome because of just one icon, right? I can just use a little bit of text. I think that this still looks pretty alright. Yeah, but otherwise the theme looks good on mobile phone. I'm pretty sure it will look good on an iPad. If we just opened up an iPad, yeah, I think that this looks pretty alright. You may want to think about actually making these a little bit larger on iPad, maybe making them like call MD of 6, but I will just leave it this way because I think that it's still very readable on iPad, and I think that this is just alright. So I will just close this whole thing and move on to other pages. Alright, so with the index page being basically done, what we can do is just simply copy paste it, so Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and just change this into a detail, so like this. And let's see whether that's actually what will be opened. I think it's not. I think that we need to go into detail.html right here. And yeah, so that should be the detail page. Let's just change this to detail so that we can check. Yeah, there it is. Nice. So let me just close this thing and let me change a couple of things in here. So the navigation will stay the same, but this sort of main section, we can just put a little less padding in here. So padding on the y-axis of around 3. I think that this is all right, and in here should be the title of the theme. So let's just use the theme title or something like that. We want to put it in there. Nice. Then we will have the main section with the section of class row. Yeah, so let's just actually do that. And in here we will have section with class row, and inside, instead of these articles, we will have just a, or we probably don't want to have section in here, but we'd rather have a article because this will be just the whole post. So let's just use article, and let me just copy paste it, right? And then in here we probably don't want this, but we want to have some sort of aside. So let's just use aside, and yeah, I think that this should work, aside. And let me also put this inside of a div with the class of row, and inside we want to have these two. So I will just Ctrl X them inside of this div, and this one will have the call of, even on middle devices it will take about 2/3, and the aside will take just 1/3. So call MD just 4. Alright, we can maybe just add a little bit of shadow to this whole thing, but I will just do it like this. So I will create a new div with the class of margin of 2 and a shadow. And then inside I will just put the whole content. So inside here we probably want to have the image with the class of image fluid. We also want to define the source, and we also want to define the alt, right? So alt will be something that you fill, and source will be just an images folder, and there should be like one JPEG, yeah, something like that. And if I close this thing, there should be an image. We should be able to see it. Okay, and it have a pretty nice shadow around it. I think that this is pretty nice. We can maybe just change this padding so that it is actually a little bit smaller. We can maybe even go with 2. Definitely the padding on top doesn't have to be as big because this is highly related to this whole theme title. Alright, so then what we can do is just add some sort of buttons in here. So underneath this whole image, we can just add a div with the class of, I don't know, like badges, right? So we can just have these badges in here. So I will have just a link with the href saying something, and with the class being badge, and then badge primary. And let's also add a margin of 1 and padding of 1, and I think that this should be it. So if I just call this one Bootstrap, I think that we should be able to see a badge. There it is, nice. And let's also change the font size to 4, I think. Let's see, 4, yeah, there it is, nice. So this is sort of a badge of ours that's pretty large. Let's maybe change this one to, let's just see how 5 would look like. If we change it to 5, I think 5 looks the best. Let's just go with 5. Nice. And yeah, you can obviously put multiple of these, more of these. So I don't know, like whatever you want to put in here. So for example, responsive, stuff like that. So these should be other badges. Yeah, there they are. Nice. Okay, so then underneath we will have just some sort of, maybe some sort of subheading, just saying something, and then underneath we will have just some sort of paragraph, basically describing this whole thing. So this should be like lorem of 80, probably something like that. Let's see, there it is. We definitely want to put this into some sort of div that has the margin. Okay, so this is a div that has the margin, but we want to put this whole content inside another div that should have also margin. So inside here we will have a div with the class of margin 2, probably. I think that margin 2 will be alright, and I will just Control X this whole thing, so this whole content inside. We don't want to put the image inside because we want the image to be directly at the edges of the article, but we definitely want the text to have a little bit of space around it. Cool. And we can maybe change this to padding, so that there is a space underneath. Yeah, there it is. Nice. So I think that this looks actually pretty alright. You can feel free to play with this to maybe change this to badge of dark, you know, like change it however you want. That's up to you. You probably want to say in here margin from left will be 0, something like that. I'm not sure whether it will be overridden. Yeah, it's not. So you need to put a margin on y-axis in here. And let's just do it this way. I think that this looks actually quite cool. So let's just go with that. Now obviously you want to maybe put a little bit of margin to this heading because it's like very close to these badges. Or you can just do it in here. So you can just put a margin at bottom of like 1. So that should add a little bit of space in here so that it looks a little bit better. And I think that this looks pretty cool. In my opinion, it's just simple, straightforward looking. You can maybe put some buttons at the end of the text, right? You can put more text, obviously up to you. You can put maybe some unordered list in here. So of course, unordered list, right? Instead of just list, and then we have just list items saying like responsive. Then we can have another list item saying like, I don't know, Bootstrap 4, whatever, right? So that's only up to you, whatever you want to just write in here. But yeah, let me just add a couple of buttons in here just to see how things would look like. So if I put a div with the class of maybe some sort of margin, let's just use margin on the y-axis of 2 so that we have a little bit of space around it. And let's also use the display flex, and let's align the content to center. So align or justify content center. So justify content center like this. And if I put in here a link with the class of button primary, that might look okay. And it should probably say something like learn more or whatever, like that's up to you. Let's see how it looks like. Yeah, there it is. You can also just change the text to white. Let's see how that would look like. I'm not sure. Yeah, there it is. Text white. I think that this looks actually all right. You can also like change this and copy a little bit, like add another button that should be maybe button dark. Let's see how that would look like, right? If I put it in there, there it is, a dark button. Yeah, so up to you. You can add as many as you like. You can put a margin on the x-axis to this thing so that they are not as close together, right? So margin on the x-axis of 1. Like save this thing, and let's see. Yeah, there it is, a little bit of space. The drawback is that these buttons look really like these badges, like they are very similar, and you probably want to somehow separate these. So maybe you want to use like outline, or maybe you just want to add a little bit more padding and maybe make the font size of just 3 or 4. Yeah, font size of 4, just to make them larger, you know. Yeah, definitely the font size of 4 looks better. So yeah, so that it is actually larger. Okay, cool. But that's about it. What we can also do is just add some sort of info about the author. So right underneath this whole thing, let me just put it into another div so that there is a little bit of space around this. So I will just put another div with the class of with the class of padding of 2. And inside here we will have just some sort of author info. So I will just have another div with the class of row. Inside I will have another div with the class of call on large of 3, or maybe even middle devices of 3. And then inside we will have just some sort of image with the class of image fluid. And let's also add the rounded circle class, so that it looks like a circle. And let's also add the source to this whole thing, and let me just move it up so you can see it. And this should be like image, and let's just use there should be some sort of person available here. Where is it? Person, there it is. And let me just close this thing. You obviously want to define the alt also, so alt will be up to you. And yeah, you still probably need to define the width and height. So if we just take this as a selector in our, we can just select a image that have the class of, wow, we need to go way up in here. Let's see if I can find the font size. Yeah, there it is. So if we just want to pick a image with the class of rounded image, rounded circle, right, we can just say that the width will be like, let's just say 100 pixels, and the height will be also 100 pixels. And we probably have to make it important because it will be overridden. No, it's not, so that's cool. And let's also define the object fit, right? So object fit, and this is definitely cover, so that it keeps the aspect ratio. And then we can see the person. Yeah, I think that this looks actually all right. And let's also add the content in here. So we will have another div with the class of call md of 9, right? 9. And in here we can just put the info about the author. So we can just say that there will be a h3 heading, basically saying that this is a John Doe, and we can just put, I don't know, like some sort of simple paragraph about him, so maybe something like Lorm of 20. Let's see how that would look like. So if I reload the page, there it is. I think that this is pretty, and that's too much text. But otherwise I think that this is pretty much all right. If we remove the margin from the heading, so inside here I will just put class of margin of 0. So we should remove the heading, remove the margin from the heading. There it is. I think that this looks actually pretty all right. And let's just align the image to right. So inside here I will just put text right. That should do the trick. That should move it somewhere around here. So if I save it, yeah, there it is. And what we can also do, or try to do, is just make this whole thing smaller. So I can just say that there will be just of 7. Let's see how that would look like. There it is. Yeah, we probably want to go with 8 or something in between. But yeah, I think that this is like a complete detail. So yeah, I think that this is pretty much about it. We may want to just change maybe the styling of this thing a little bit, so we can just say the background will be dark and the text will be white. That might look interesting, I don't know. There it is. I think this looks actually pretty cool. Or you can just use the background of primary. That might also look interesting. You know, green background, white text on it. I think that this looks actually very cool. Let's just go with that. Yeah. So yeah, I think that this is the main part of the article taken care of, and let's just move on to the sidebar. So in the sidebar, aside right here, what we will have is just some sort of recommended articles. So inside here, I will just put a, yeah, let's see what we have. How do I put, yeah, let me just maybe copy paste it. So I will go to this index, and in here I will find these articles. There it is, article, and let me just copy paste it. So I will put it in here, and instead of call of MD of 4, I will just say with 100. That should do the trick. So if I save it and reload it, there we have the article, nice and clean. But I think that there's some sort of margin, pretty large margin, right? If I just go here, or there's padding added to it, right? So there is padding to the aside, and there is padding to this article, right? So I'm not sure what we want to remove, because otherwise if we just click on this article, yeah. All right, so let's just say to this aside that there will be a padding of 0. So just see how it would look like. So padding of 0, and let's see if I reload the page. There it is. But we definitely want only the padding on the x-axis to be 0. We want them to be tied together. There's some sort of padding at the top, right? So currently there is no padding, but in here we have some sort of margin. Yeah, there is margin on top. So let me just add the let me just add a margin on the y-axis of 2 to this whole thing. We will need it anyway because we need somehow to separate these articles, right? And inside here we can just change this to margin of 0. So that there it is. Nice. That looks much better, I think. So I would go with that, and let me just copy paste this whole thing and see how it looks like. That might be too large of a margin in here, the margin on y-axis of 2. But no, it actually looks good. Let's just go with that. Nice. So I will just copy paste a couple of these, but otherwise we are pretty much done for this section. So that's about it for this whole sort of detail post. Cool. Let me also check how it looks like on a mobile phone. So if I just toggle the view, okay, we are on iPad Pro. I think that this looks all right. And let's just change it to iPhone X. There it is. Nice. So we have menu, everything works. Then we have the article with the post. That looks all right. Okay, I think that this looks actually pretty cool. So let's just go with that. Nice. So let's move on actually to the About Us page. Alright, so in order to actually create the About Us page, I will just copy paste this detail and rename this. So I will just rename it to About. Alright, About. And let me just change this to About, like this. And let's see. Yeah, there is still details, so we want to just go to the about.html, and there it is, About. Nice. So first thing that we will do is just change this sort of title, and we will collapse this thing, and this should be just About Us, right? Like this, and let's save it. There should be About Us right here. There it is. Nice. So what we will do now is just go to this main sort of section and actually remove this whole thing, and we will just put a some sort of text. So let's just use a div with the class of call of large of 6, inside of which we will have just some sort of div with the class of some sort of margin of 3, something like that. And inside here we will have just our text, so maybe some sort of subheading. Okay, so subheading, and maybe some sort of text. So let's just see a paragraph with a lot of lorem ipsum. So I will just put in here lorem of 200. Alright, that might be too much, but we will see. Yeah, that's definitely too much. Anyway, I will just put maybe a margin of 2 in here. Anyway, I will just create another div with the class of call large of 6, and in this div I will just add the image. So I will just add image with the class of image fluid. So we will have some sort of image added to this, we will have some sort of alt in here, and let's also add some sort of source that will go to the image page, and let's just use, I don't know, this one. I'm not sure what it is, really have no idea, no clue what will be displayed. Okay, there it is. Not sure why it isn't displayed on one row. Of course, we've put it inside of this whole div, so that's my bad. We want to put it in here, and let's just use something like 11, some other div, some other image maybe. Yeah, I think that this looks actually better. And let's also put the align content center in here, or align items center, sorry, like this. And let's reload it, see how it looks like. Yeah, there it is, nice. We may want to just move this whole thing to right. That's up to you. I will leave that up to you. It depends, I don't know, it's your preferences, your page, so that's up to you. You may want to just copy paste a little bit of more of text and stuff like that, but I will leave that up to you. Okay, I think that the about us page is more about the content rather than the styling of the page. I think that this looks pretty much alrighty, but what we actually did is just added some sort of text and image, right? Really not a computer science. So another thing that I will do is just create a contact.html. So this will be just in a file, so contact.html, and in here we will have just the contact information and contact form. So let me just go to this file, contact, like this, and there it is, nice. So let's just change the heading of this whole section. I will close this thing, and let's just change it to contact us. And let's also remove this whole thing, right? We don't need that. Or we can keep the row, but we can just remove these. And let's probably just use maybe we can just use directly the form, and we can just have the class of let's just use call of maybe MD of 6, something of that sort. Let's see. Yeah, we will not see anything. Let me see whether I can just find some sort of forms examples in here. Yeah, there are a couple of them. So we will just simply copy paste some forms. Let's see what we want to check, whether there is something that we would like definitely want to use. I don't see anything. I don't see anything really good. So we can just maybe grab this large one, or yeah, maybe let's just use this one. Yeah, with these radio buttons. So let me just copy paste this content. Actually, I just need this content. So I will just Control C, Control V, and let's see how it looks like on our page. There it is, nice. Let's also put up here, where do we have it, row. We don't want to align items, we want to justify content center, right, in this case. So justify content center, so that should move it in center, nice. So we have a email, password. We probably don't want to have password in here, so this should be like maybe name or subject or reason why you are writing us. I will leave that up to you to actually fix this thing. Then we have the radio buttons, so maybe like describe your query or something like that. And inside here we can just put yeah, like something like I don't know, problem, refound, right, and stuff like that. So I will leave that up to you. You can obviously just edit it out based on your preferences. I will just remove this last thing, so that should be this whole div, right? We don't want the disabled one in there, and we probably just want to remove this whole checkbox thing, and instead of sign in it should say something like send. So send. And we can maybe change the font size a little bit, so in here we can just say font size of 4, maybe even 3, no 4, let's just go with 4. And we can maybe just change the padding on the x-axis and like make it 2. Let's see how that would look like. Yeah, I think that this looks much better. Okay, but otherwise I think that this looks actually alright. Even though with these buttons, I think that we can just say that this one will be 4 and this one will be 8, like this. Yeah, there it is. I think that this looks much better. And then we probably want to add just some sort of text area. So I will just Control-C, Control-V this one underneath this field set. And inside here will be message. And instead of the input, we will have just a text area. So I will just remove this whole thing and I will put a text area in here. And I think that that should do the trick. Yeah, we definitely want to add a couple of classes in here. So I will just add the class of width of 100%. Definitely want to do that. And let's maybe add a little bit of padding to this thing. Something like padding of 1. Just to make it a little bit larger. Like overall, I think that this looks pretty alright. If you want, you can edit it out yourself, obviously to your needs. But yeah, I think that we are pretty much good to go. Only thing I forgot is the credits in the footer, right? So I will add a div with the class of credits in here, and I will just say a paragraph. Sorry, instead of link, there should be a paragraph. Saying we can align this to, or this is all aligned to center. So let's just say made by me, and let's also add the copyright copy like this of 2020 and all rights reserved like this. And let's see how it looks like. There should be a line somewhere at the end of this whole file. There it is. We definitely want to move it to center, so let's just say text center in here. And we probably just want to make the padding on top of 4 and the padding on bottom of around 2. And we can add the padding in here, right? So padding on bottom of 2, something like that. And padding on top of also 2, so padding on Y of 2, sorry. So let's see. I think that this looks actually pretty cool. So let's just go with that, and I will just copy paste this into every footer. But otherwise, I think we are done. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, feel free to hit the like button. It helps me out a lot and it is free. And also, if you want to see more videos like this one, feel free to subscribe to this channel. And I will see you next time.